Hey guys, so today I just wanted to share a presentation that was put together by the team over at Insulin IQ. And so the title of the presentation is Insulin Resistance and Today's Plagues of Prosperity. We'll be exploring the rise of metabolic disorders and how they're connected to insulin resistance. And so to start, let's understand what we mean by plagues of prosperity. These are serious health issues that have become ever more prevalent today despite advancements in healthcare. For example, according to the CDC, 30 million Americans now have type 2 diabetes, and that's about 1 out of every 10. And of those, 1 of 4 don't even know it. Prediabetes is reaching epidemic numbers with nearly 1 out of 3 American adults having it. And out of those, 9 out of 10 don't realize it. One significant issue that 40% of men over 45 suffer from is complications of low testosterone, which is a condition that severely affects quality of life and overall health. According to the CDC, over 17 million people in the US have coronary heart disease, and 10% of women today experience menstrual irregularities or infertility, which are nearly always linked to underlying metabolic health issues. In 1980, there were 0 cases of adolescent type 2 diabetes in the US. This absence of causes highlights how recent and dramatic the rise of disease is. Today, there are hundreds of thousands of cases. So recently, a national examination survey was done on the prevalence of optimal metabolic health in American adults. Metabolic health was defined as having 5 things in healthy ranges, and they included waist circumference, glucose levels, blood pressure, HDL cholesterol levels, and triglyceride levels. The study's conclusion was that only 12% of the US adults meet the criteria for metabolic health. And so take a look at all these modern plagues of prosperity. I'm sure you recognize all of them. And you likely have friends or family members, coworkers, loved ones who suffer from them. And all of them have one thing in common. They're either caused by or made worse by a condition called insulin resistance. And the good news, insulin resistance can be reversed in as little as 90 days, but I'll come back to that in a few minutes here. So what is insulin resistance? Let's talk about that first. When most people hear the word insulin, the first thing that comes to mind is a drug that they've heard of that's injected by people with diabetes to control their blood sugar. While that is true, what many people don't know or don't think about is that insulin is actually a hormone that's essential for our cells to function properly. So just behind your stomach, there's a little glandular organ called the pancreas. It's about 6 inches long. It secretes a hormone called insulin that helps our bodies use glucose, which is sugar from the foods that we eat for energy. Every cell and every tissue of our bodies responds to insulin flowing in our blood. Insulin binds to a receptor on a cell, and then it starts a series of events within that cell, which helps deliver the energy that our cells need to function properly. In addition to helping deliver energy to our cells, insulin also helps us store excess glucose as fat for future use, and insulin helps keep our blood sugar levels from getting too high. So what is insulin resistance? Insulin resistance is a condition in which the cells of the body don't respond well to insulin. When cells become less responsive, makes it more difficult for insulin to impact those cells, and they're not actually as receptive. So as a result, it takes more and more and more insulin to get the cell to respond and allow the insulin to help deliver the energy into the cell that it needs. The condition is called insulinemia, where there's an abnormally large concentration of insulin in the blood. Think about it this way. The first time someone has a cocktail, that little bit of alcohol has a tremendous effect, but over time, the body becomes more resistant to the alcohol. So that just means it takes more and more of the alcohol to achieve the same effect. I'm sure we all are familiar with that. So ultimately, as more cells throughout the body become insulin resistant, the whole body then is considered insulin resistant. So in summary, when you're insulin resistant, there are two things that are going on in your body. First, the levels of insulin in your bloodstream are too high. And second, the cells are less responsive to all that insulin. So let's move on to the question, what causes insulin resistance? To answer that question, too much insulin in your bloodstream. So to follow up that question, what causes too much insulin in the bloodstream? And the answer to that is things we eat and drink. Here's what happens. We all have about 1.5 gallons of blood flowing through our bodies at any given time, which is about 24 cups. And guess how much sugar all the blood is designed to handle at one time? About 1 teaspoon. So what happens when you drink a Coke and dump in the equivalent of 13 teaspoons of sugar into your bloodstream? Or what happens when you eat a blueberry muffin and dump equivalent of 14 teaspoons of sugar into your bloodstream? It creates a huge spike in the blood sugar levels. The three macronutrient food groups, carbohydrates, protein, and fat, have different impacts on blood sugar levels. So carbohydrates like corn, wheat, potatoes, sugar, and fructose all have the most impact. Protein has much less of an impact. And then what about fat? So healthy fats have almost no effect of blood sugar levels. So when you ate that blueberry muffin and spiked your blood sugar, your body immediately went to work trying to bring that level down. It did that by having your pancreas dump a bunch of insulin into your bloodstream, and then about the time it started to help and drive the insulin level down. It was lunchtime, you ate some more carbs in the form of, say, pizza. And once again, blood sugar levels are spiked and your pancreas dumps a whole other batch of insulin into your bloodstream. And then this continues day after day, month after month, and there are 4 consequences that result. So first off, we gain weight. Second, we feel more hungry all the time. Third, fat release from our cells is inhibited by the flood of readily available energy in the form of carbs and sugar. And fourth, we become even more insulin resistant. So in summary, what is insulin resistance? The answer is that there's just too much insulin in the bloodstream. And then the follow-up question, what causes too much insulin in the bloodstream? And the answer lies in remembering that the blueberry muffin, with the equivalent to 14 teaspoons of sugar, its nutritional makeup is 3/4 carbohydrates. So what can we do differently? Here's just one example I have. So what if for breakfast, instead of having that muffin, the orange juice, you took a few extra minutes and ate something that didn't spike your blood sugar, and it only required your pancreas to secrete a very small amount of insulin into your bloodstream? So what if you had a 3-egg omelet with some bacon, cheese, a little bit of diced green peppers, and onions? Then just for fun, maybe you wanted to top it off with a few avocado slices or maybe a dollop of sour cream. Now let's compare the nutrition composition of these two breakfasts. Nearly 3/4 of the muffin and orange juice breakfast was carbohydrates, which your body does recognize as sugar. So our omelet breakfast is made up of 8% carbohydrates, 37% protein, and over half, 55% healthy fats. So remember the effect of protein and fat on blood sugar. It's far, far less than carbohydrates. This is the difference that makes all the difference when it comes to fighting insulin resistance. We've already talked about the 4 consequences that result in high carbohydrate eating. But again, the good news is that there are also 4 consequences to low carb, insulin smart eating. And so the first, you lose weight. The second, you're not as hungry all the time. Third, you have more energy. And fourth, you start to become what is called as fat adapted. So what does it mean to start becoming fat adapted? It means that in the absence of all these carbohydrates, your body switches to burning fat as a fuel. So think of it this way. Let's just pretend you drive a gasoline tanker truck across the country delivering gasoline. The small tank behind your cab is the gas tank that you use to fuel your truck's engine. That tank is relatively small and you must stop consistently to fill it up. So that's what it's like fueling your body with carbohydrates. But what if instead you could access that huge tank that you're pulling behind you and power your truck's engine with all of that fuel? That's what happens when you become fat adapted. Your body learns how to draw on the energy that's in your body and is being stored as fat. So again, in the absence of carbohydrates, the body adapts and begins switching to burning fat. Now you might be thinking to yourself, becoming healthier through low carb eating is so important. Why doesn't it match up with what I've always heard before? And you're probably thinking, why don't I hear any of this from my doctor? Because the truth is, for over half a century, mainstream nutritional advice has been wrong about what we should be eating and why we get sick and fat. So let me share a short history lesson to you that actually spans over the course of 60 years. So after President Eisenhower's 1955 heart attack, flawed research by a scientist named Ansel Keys and others became the foundation of the US nutritional guidelines, impacting fat as a major risk factor for heart disease. By the 1980s, the anti-fat message was so embedded that it became nearly impossible to challenge it, even after studies showed that replacing fat with carbohydrates resulted in no reduction in heart disease. And so as a result, beef disappeared from dinner tables, margarine replaced butter, and cereals replaced eggs. After all, granola looks really healthy, right? And with that little heart healthy logo on the box, well, why would you even question it? The fact is, consumer thinking was misled. Shoppers were told that because fat is so dangerous and these products don't have fat, therefore they must be healthier. The problem is when fat is taken out of food, it has to be replaced with something else. And that something else was carbohydrates and sugar, and lots of it, just to make it taste good. It wasn't until years later that the proof started coming out about the flawed science and deception. Grocery stores' shelves filled with non-fat yogurts, low-fat microwave dinners, and reduced-fat cheese-flavored crackers. Decades went by, and today's scientific proof confirms that it was a complete failure. We cut out the fat everywhere we could, and by virtually every measure, Americans and much of the world is fatter and sicker than ever. Quoting Dr. Colin Champ, author of Misguided Medicine, the notion that saturated fats and cholesterol cause heart disease is the greatest scientific deception of our times. The science today is irrefutable. The overconsumption of carbs and sugar is chiefly responsible for the epidemics of obesity, type 2 diabetes, and the many other chronic diseases. Scientists and nutritionists from the 1960s up until very recently labeled fat the enemy, and they were just wrong. So what does that mean to eat insulin smart? So it means three things. First, it means understanding the science-based truths about nutrition. Second, it means becoming mindful and intuitive eater. And third, it means learning to adjust as needed for your own individual success. So when it comes to understanding science-based truths in nutrition, we talk about four things. So they are first, prioritizing protein. Second, controlling carbohydrates. Third, filling with fiber and healthy fats. And fourth, fasting frequently. Becoming a mindful, intuitive eater by reshaping behavior includes acknowledging food choices and developing healthy habits. And adjusting as needed for individual success means finding what works for you and then fine-tuning your tactics over time. It also includes learning about and recognizing the impact of other factors besides nutrition, including sleep, stress, and physical activity levels. So armed with these newfound truths, what's next? Are you going to continue to believe what you've been told for decades by family, friends, and perhaps even your doctor that you're sick and fat because you eat too much and you exercise too little? No. Are you going to make yourself miserable continuing to count calories? No, you don't need to do that. Are you going to buy all sorts of expensive organic foods that you're not used to? Absolutely not. Are you going to continue to blame technology for your children's poor health and obesity? No. Are you going to eat a piece of birthday cake the next time you attend a birthday party? Yeah, you can. You're simply going to just honestly acknowledge its effects on your insulin, and you're going to enjoy it and get right back on track the next morning. So are you going to occasionally order a triple cheeseburger at your favorite burger restaurant? Of course you are. Absolutely. You're just going to have them leave off the bun, wrap it in lettuce, and top it off with some healthy avocado slices would be the better option. And then you'll just serve it to you with a fork. So almost every burger place nowadays, they do know what it means when you say lettuce wrapped or protein style. So that's not a problem. And then are you going to start preparing super simple, amazingly delicious, insulin smart meals like cauliflower chicken Alfredo? Of course you are. Absolutely. And then you're going to be so surprised how well you can eat with insulin smart that you can eat all kinds of different things they probably never thought that you could, all these different recipes. So I'll just click through them here. So like some of the stuff looks deadly and is stuff that I eat all the time myself. I don't know about the blue cheese. I probably would stay away from that personally, but lots of people like that. I'm not really a big fan of goat cheese either, but that's a good choice to add into your diet if that's something that you do enjoy. So see some of these examples. I mean, there's a whole variety of different things that you can still eat and then still be healthy. So finally, you remember at the beginning of this presentation, I told you that the good news is insulin resistance can be reversed in as little as 90 days. Well, let me show you one of the many case studies. So I'm an Insulin IQ certified coach, and Insulin IQ was founded about 10 years ago by one of the most reputable metabolic scientists in the world. His name's Dr. Benjamin Bickman. And Dr. Bickman conducted a clinical study that was published in the prestigious Journal of Diabetes Research. The study was certified by Brigham Young University, and the study subjects were 11 people who had recently been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and subjects limited carbs for 90 days, satiating with protein and healthy fats. They made no significant changes in their physical activity, and the study tracked weight, blood pressure, blood lipids, and A1C, and the results were remarkable. 98-day impact on body weight was significant, with the average weight loss of about 20 pounds. And so the systolic blood pressure dropped significantly over 11 points. The diastolic blood pressure dropped significantly as well, from 90 to 83. And then blood triglycerides plummeted from 177 to 92. HDL cholesterol was up significantly, as you can see there. The 90-day impact on triglyceride to HDL ratio was amazing, from an average of 4.6 to 1.6. And finally, the drop in A1C was super remarkable, from 8.9 to 5.6. And so that was just in 90 days, which, as you know, actually means a reversal of these subjects' type 2 diabetes diagnosis. So whether we're talking about erectile dysfunction, sarcopenia, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, stroke, heart disease, obesity, migraines, dementia, Alzheimer's disease, arthritis, fatty liver disease, PCOS, childhood obesity, or osteoarthritis, you don't need to feel helpless. In fighting today's plagues of prosperity, thank you.